go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a fenny snake in a cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blindworm sting, lizard leg and howlet's wing. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boiling bubble. Welcome to the Planet 8 Halloween podcast.
You are invited to join the Banshees, the werewolves, the vampires, the gooks, who are all coming to our Halloween convention of spooks. You'll enjoy this lively group if your blood doesn't end up in the soup. Practice your screams. Break out your shrouds. Tighten your nerves. And join the crowds at our convention of spooks.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your mission commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen. On this episode, we are going to be discussing some of our favorite Halloween-themed television series from the past or the present. And I'm going to kick it off. We're all big Star Trek fans here on Planet 8. I decided to take a second look at, or another look at, the Catspaw episode from Star Trek, the original series. Now, this was a second season episode. And it was funny, I've watched Star Trek for the better part of 40 years of my life. I never realized that Robert Bloch wrote this episode. Robert Bloch of Psycho fame. And it blew my mind. We kind of touched on this episode in another podcast. I remember talking about the witches with you, Bob, and Karen. And
yeah, I was just going to tell that story again, but you know.
Hey, for those who haven't heard that episode, we could get into it.
All right.
It's interesting because this episode was actually written as a Halloween episode of Star Trek. And so Walter Koenig is in this episode as Chekhov. But it's interesting because this was broadcast after several other episodes that featured Pavel Chekhov. So this episode was actually the first time they filmed Chekhov in a Star Trek episode. Oh. But it was 6 or 7 episodes later so that they could air it closer to Halloween.
So I guess he's lucky they didn't write this for the animated series.
Well, exactly. The one of the things that really caught my attention was his wig. I mean, this thing could have been a monster in and of itself. It is so poofy and just, I don't know. It was very distracting for me. But just a real quick recap.
Just aside, you know why his hair was like that, right?
For
Davy Jones.
The teens watching,
because
right.
at the time, before he was on Star Trek, the one person getting the most mail at the network was Davy Jones of the Monkees. So they added Chekhov, and they didn't want to make him like British or whatever, so they made him Russian, but they still gave him the beetle wig or monkey wig. And out of all the hairstyles on Star Trek, I think his probably holds up least best.
It's very detracting, and it's so obvious that it's a wig. Later episodes, they kind of worked it out a little better,
they toned it down a little bit.
Yeah,
definitely. So real quickly, the intrepid crew of the Enterprise goes to this planet, and Pyrus 7 is the planet, if I remember correctly. If I'm reading correctly, too. But anyway, they beam down to the planet because some of the crewmen have gone missing. One of the crew, of course, Red Shirt, beams back up to the ship, and it's like a mannequin. The person is not there. They go down to the planet. They meet these aliens, and this is one of the first Star Trek episodes where, spoiler alert, 50-plus-year-old TV show, if you haven't seen the episode yet, excuse me, the aliens are actually they look like little Cthulhus. And you can tell that they're kind of like string puppets. But the aliens in Star Trek were usually Romulans, Klingons. You had the suit aliens like the Gorn or the Magato. But these things were otherworldly. And except for the animated series, we never really saw aliens that did not look human in some way, shape, or form. So that was noteworthy to me.
That's a good point, Larry, because on one hand, you can kind of say, well, they're, kind of goofy little puppet things, but it was kind of creepy because they were just these weird little creatures kind of flopping around because they were dying and everything. But they were distinctly non-humanoid and obviously, very, very different from anything we had seen before. And, kind of creepy, like, oh, wait, these weird little things were manipulating this entire, like everyone's perceptions of what was going on.
Exactly.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. And the language, too, when they were speaking, they disintegrated at the end of the episode, unfortunately, once they revealed themselves. But it was this weird, like, otherworldly kind of like chirping, or a mix of a chirp and a cackle, and it was just kind of, I can't even imitate it. I would if I could. But look, it was a Halloween episode. It was a lot of fun. Bob, why don't you share that witch story with us one more time? There were witches when they beamed down.
The episode's really creepy. But no, yeah, when they initially go down to the planet, you've got the three witches there. Mm-hmm. And they're like, go back, go back. Yes.
And they knew them by name.
And, when Star Trek was originally on, and you said this was like second season, so I had been watching it, since the beginning.
Right.
I was like 6 or 7 or something. And that scene came on and just scared the crap out of me. And from then on, it was Lost in Space all the way. until Star Trek, came back in syndication or whatever, and then I started watching. But, yeah, I just like cold turkey, no Star Trek. Screw that.
Yeah. No, interestingly enough, like I said, I can't talk enough about Robert Bloch having written this episode. He also wrote another episode titled "What Are Little Girls Made Of?" Now, originally, and Kieran and I have talked about this before, I thought it was the Rejek episode, "Wolf in the Fold," where the guy gets possessed. I thought it was that, unless, excuse me, unless Wiki has failed me, which it often does. But they did mention the old ones, and that is a reference to, oh my God, my mind is a blank. Not Orwell.
Oh, Cthulhu. H.P. Lovecraft.
Lovecraft. Oh my God, I can't believe I brain farted so badly. Thank you, Walker. Yes, it mentioned the old ones in both episodes, and so that added just like another little layer to the creepiness of the overall story. This episode also had a black cat. McCoy mentions hobgoblins, and he's not referring to Spock at that point, which he does often in the series. So yeah, there were a lot of references to some of the things that we associate closely to our Halloween festivities on your planet Earth. Planet 8, of course, we celebrate Halloween 365 days a year. But
well, they also had the Enterprise encased in glass or whatever that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure maybe it was a Federation trading post or somebody back then offered like the Enterprise in glass. That episode, yeah.
Man,
I think it was Lincoln Enterprises.
I was going to say it was probably
Roddenberry's outfit.
I wish I had that.
Larry, I was going to say I'm pretty sure Robert Bloch did write Wolf in the Fold. As a matter of fact, I just pulled it up on my mini interrogator, and it does say that he wrote it.
Well,
so.
I am going to put on Wiki fail. Little girl, because that didn't make any sense to me.
You know, there's like a whole library worth of books written on Star Trek and
what are these
scholarly
things?
Journal and things, and you're looking at Wiki.
What are these things called? Books,
Bob? They've got like type on paper pages.
Well, I will send a nastygram to the people at Wiki. Thank you very much, Karen, for correctly identifying, and that makes a lot more sense.
Well, it's what I do there.
You do it so well. Karen does utilize those things you call books, Bob. Hey, Wolf in the Fold was another. It wasn't really Halloweenish in the way that it presented itself, but it was a Jack the Ripper episode.
Kill you all.
Yeah.
Die horribly.
Die, make you suffer.
God, I can't think of the name of the actor, but he was so great. They juice him up with some kind of tranquilizer at the end.
Oh, John Fiedler.
Yes. And he's just like, I'm going to kill you all. Die.
Well, yeah, they had to drug him up to keep the alien or whatever inside him. And
trapped inside.
Rajak.
Because he was inside everybody. It was initially McCoy, right? That was
Scotty.
Scotty, that's right.
It was Mr. Scott, and they're like, did you kill her? I don't know.
I don't remember.
I tell you, Captain, I don't know what happened.
That's right, because he was down like in a brothel or something, right?
Their version of it, yeah.
Pleasure Planet.
Yeah, I don't think she was green, but she was belly dancing with the best of them. Anyway, another great episode if you guys get a chance to watch. Let's kick it up to the...
Before you go on,
yes, sir?
You were saying you were covering Star Trek for Halloween. Now, were there any other Star Trek episodes, like Next Generation or whatever, that did a Halloween episode? Or
Well, that's a good question, Bob. Not really. Catspaw was the only episode that was really Halloween, right? With witches and hobgoblins and the cats and stuff. The Wolf in the Fold, Jack the Ripper could kind of be Halloweenish. The way that it presented itself at the end when the alien was jumping around trying to kill people in that creepy voice. There were some Next Generation episodes where I can't think of the name of the episode, but this woman beams or appears at this planet, and this planet made a deal with this deity 1,000 years ago, and she's like, the devil one, right? And she appears as like the human or Earth version of the devil. There's the Klingon version of the devil, and visually it was very cool to watch that. And it turns out that she was just a charlatan, and Picard was able to shed light on the parlor tricks that she was using on these aliens on this planet. I don't know, Karen, can you think of another? I mean, there have been Next Generation episodes where they get possessed by aliens, but they had nefarious ideas on taking over the ship. It wasn't necessarily a woo.
Well, I mean, you would think that Star Trek would kind of lend itself to Halloween episodes, but
yeah, they didn't really. It was always boldly going where no one had gone before, and they never, look, they went to Nazi planets, they went to planets that were underwater, but they never visited a Halloween planet per se.
I think
did not boldly go to Halloween.
Yeah.
There was always, it was much more, especially Next Generation was much more scientifically oriented, but I think there were a couple of episodes that were horror tinged, and of course I can't think of the names of the episodes right now because I only memorized classic Trek episode names.
Well, of course.
But there were 2 episodes that come to mind that had sort of horror connotations. One was where aliens were abducting people off of the Enterprise and experimenting on them.
Cutting them in pieces and reattaching the pieces.
Yes, like they had cut off Riker's arm and reattached it, and the crew was kind of figuring out this was happening.
It's kind of like an alien abduction thing.
Go ahead.
Right?
What?
It was kind of like an alien abduction thing?
Yes, it was like a classic alien abduction thing, and they were playing it out in Next Gen. And then the other one I can think of is when they somehow, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was some sort of I don't know if it was a virus or some sort of weird de-evolution thing that was going on with the crew. And it really didn't make a lot of sense because some people devolved into like spider creatures. Some people devolved into ape-like creatures. Some like, I think Deanna sort of like turned into a fish creature or something. Do you remember this at all, Larry?
I remember. For some reason, I'd put it out of my head, but now I know why. Deanna becoming the fish creature kind of brought it back, though.
Like she was laying in her bathtub, and she
had gills.
Yeah, it was very, very weird.
Was it Worf?
Worf turned into like this, like big, monstrous thing, and was pounding down the doors trying to get to people. And I think he was going to eat Picard or something. So,
I remember that.
Yeah. That's about all I can think of from Next Gen. They didn't go to that well very often.
Yeah, and Deep Space Nine, they kind of went in a different direction. And I know after the 3rd season, Walker, the war broke out, and so there was a lot of. It was more like The Great Escape. They had some of those stories where you're a prisoner of war,
but they did have the metaphysical aspect where you had like the paw wraiths and. All that stuff from the Bajoran religion.
That's true. So there were like some possession stories involving the paw wraiths and stuff, but it wasn't too spooky. And I can't really speak to Voyager or what was it, Enterprise?
Nope, me neither.
Yeah, so.
And Discovery was just a short season. That's the thing these days. It's hard to do Halloween episodes and Christmas episodes of things because series keep, it's like you binge through something all at once, or they're on and then they're off for 2 months and then they come back on again, and you never know when they're on.
The other thing too is there's so much content out there now that you have Netflix and CBS All Access has all the classic Twilight Zone episodes, but now they have the new Twilight Zone episodes. Shudder has Creepshow. And yes, the wife and I broke down and we're paying $5.99 to Shudder now so we can watch Creepshow. But Amazon and Hulu and now Disney's coming out with their Disney Plus. So there's so much creepy movie and
well, I mean, the landscape of TV is totally changing. Although Netflix had Sabrina, the new Sabrina, and they actually did a Halloween special.
Sabrina.
In between the 2 series, yeah.
Oh, well.
There was like season 1, season 2, and then in between they had a Halloween special.
There you go.
But I mean, Teenage Witch, I mean, that kind of like lends itself to Halloween, so.
Right. There was, God, I don't know if you watched it, Karen, a series on Netflix, Haunted House. Bob, you and I were talking about it. Lieutenant Debbie loved it. It was a ghost story in that.
Yeah, Haunting of Hill House.
The Haunting of Hill House. I don't know if we've mentioned that because we've done so many podcasts over the last year and a half. But if you guys have not seen The Haunting of Hill House, go binge through it right now.
I want to say we talked about it in like the year-end wrap.
The wrap,
episode,
okay.
Because I remember saying that it's a really hard series. You have to binge through it straight.
Right.
Because if you watch because we were watching like an episode or two each week, and you just lose track of the characters and who's who because they're bouncing back and forth from when they were kids to adults and in between, and you have to keep that all straight. So if you don't binge straight through it, each time you go back to look at it, you have to remember, okay, this is this person, and that's that person, and this guy's storyline is this, and that guy, because there's like so many storylines between the characters as well.
It sounds confusing and convoluted, but it was so masterfully right. If you watch the whole thing, it one of the best scary series that I've seen in a long time. I cannot give it enough.
And there were some good jumps too. I don't jump that much anymore at movies or TV shows, but they had some good jumps in that thing.
Oh yeah, I agree. My wife jumped out of her skin in one scene, and it made me jump as well because she screamed like bloody murder. But let's kick it up to the satellite because I'm sure Karen has something to share with us with regards to Halloween episodes. Karen, take it away.
Halloween episodes. Well, when I think of Halloween episodes, the first thing that came to my mind was the many Treehouse of Horror episodes that the Simpsons have done over the years.
Oh, yes.
Very good.
Do you guys want to venture how many Treehouse of Horror
I'm going to say
there have been?
20, I'll do something odd, 21?
Yeah, I was going to say the Simpsons have been on for a long time.
Yeah, I don't remember what season they started the Treehouse of Horror. I don't think they did one the first season, but
no.
I'm going to say 21.
Okay.
Larry, do you have a guess?
I'll say 17.
Well, Bob is closer. They have done 29 now since 1990.
Oh.
How many seasons has they been on?
So I don't know how many seasons the show has
been
on.
No, they've been on. They were like
started,
one of the first Fox series when Fox first became a network.
Spun off from Tracy Ullman.
Well, yeah.
They started the Treehouse of Horror in 1990.
Wow.
And they've done 29 now. And, I mean...
And you're going to cover every one today?
I am not going to cover every one. I was like, what am I going to do? So there were certain ones that I still... And I have to admit, I have not watched Simpsons regularly in a very long time. But there were certain episodes, there were certain segments that stood out in my head. So I went back and tried to figure out, well, which Treehouse of Horrors were those? And I think there was a certain sweet spot for these, or at least in my, my personal opinion, around, the early 90s, mid 90s, the Treehouse of Horror, I would say number 5, 6, and 7 are all really, really good. I really focused on number 5, but there were some great segments in some of the other ones too. Number 5 is really great, I think, because, well, before I jump into that, if people haven't seen these, which is kind of hard to believe, but some people might not have seen them, one of the things that they did in these is they always kind of, they did a lot of homages to old films, old TV shows. So a lot of times they would pay homage to like the Twilight Zone or Night Gallery or certain movies. King Kong. They would do classic movies like King Kong or Frankenstein or The Fly, things like that, or more current movies.
Yeah, I was going to say I seem to remember a lot of Twilight Zone. Yes,
they did a lot of Twilight Zone. At least in the early years, they covered a lot of Twilight Zone episodes. So the one that I really is like my favorite is basically Treehouse of Horror 5, or V for those people out there who know their Roman numerals. That one has it starts with a takeoff of The Shining called The Shinning, which it actually opens with a takeoff of the Outer Limits control voice with Bart as the control voice, and then moves into this version of The Shining where the Simpsons go up to take over this lodge, which is actually run by Mr. Burns, and then he leaves them there, and he's like, well, they'll be more productive if there's no television and no alcohol. And of course that drives Homer nuts, so he's in like the Jack Nicholson role. And the ghosts tell him, Mo is the ghost bartender and tells him to kill his family, and groundskeeper Willie is like in the Scatman Crothers role, and he has the telepathic powers, but instead of the shining, it's the shinning, because they don't want to get sued. So he tells Bart, oh, you have the shinning. And he tells him to use his shinning power if his dad goes crazy. And I don't know, the whole thing is just really hilarious, because they really do a pretty spot on version of the film with, Homer on the rampage. It's pretty good. And then the next one is actually, I think, even better, because that's the one, I think a lot of people know this one, where Homer turns a toaster into a time machine.
Yes.
And he goes back into like prehistoric time, and he accidentally, he's trying to fix a toaster, and he turns it into a time machine. Then he winds up going back into prehistoric time, and he kills a mosquito. And then because he does that, he alters time, and he winds up going back and forth. And at one point Flanders is running the world, so he tries to go back again into time, and then everybody is giant, so he goes back in time again, and he just keeps doing this back and forth because everything's screwed up every time he jumps back and forth. And then he goes back to prehistoric time again, and he sneezes on a dinosaur, and he kills all the dinosaurs, and he's like, oh no, this is really going to cost me. And he goes back to his present time, and like his house has been turned into this huge mansion. Everybody's dressed well. The kids are well behaved, and everything. It's like his sisters-in-law are dead, and he's like, "Oh, this is great. This is wonderful." And then he says to Marge, "Marge, can I have a donut?" And she's like, "What's donuts?" And he's like, "Ah!" And he sends himself back in time. And then Marge looks out the window, and all these donuts are falling from the sky, and she's like, "Oh, it's raining again." But, Homer is left like his perfect world. And then finally, after more jumps back and forth, he gets back to what looks like his normal reality. And then everybody, when they go to eat, they stick these long tongues out to get the food off their plate. And he's just like, okay, and stays there.
Close enough.
Yeah. And then the last one is the Nightmare Cafeteria, where it turns out that the Principal Skinner has decided they have so many students in detention that he's going to actually turn them into cafeteria food. he winds up, cooking them different ways, and that you see like the teachers all getting fatter, and the kids are all freaking out, and they're getting fewer and fewer of them, and that one's a pretty good skit. It doesn't have a great ending, but
that's actually not a bad idea, really.
Yeah, it starts out well, and then the best part is when they get this little German kid Uter, and after they kill Uter, they have Oktoberfest, and they serve Uterbraten, and Lisa's like, "Don't you think it's odd that we're eating something called Uterbraten the day after Uter disappears?" So that was a really good one. But some of the other ones they had, the years like just before and just after, they had like a version of King Kong where Homer is King Kong. They had they did a takeoff on the great Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, where they have Bart as the William Shatner character, but he's in his school bus, and the gremlin attacks the school bus, and he's like trying to convince everybody, and he's like attacking the gremlin. And then at the end, Flanders adopts the gremlin. So,
oh, God.
They should actually do like a box set of just all the Treehouse of Horror episodes.
I wonder if there is one. I'll have to look it up, and if there is, I can put it on the...
One that I remember that I really liked was it was a takeoff on the Talking Tina Twilight Zone episode, except it was a Krusty the Clown doll.
Oh, I never saw
and
that.
At the very end, it's like Homer takes the doll back to where he got it, and the guy lifts up the shirt and goes, "Oh, you had this one set to evil." And there's like this little toggle switch on the back between good and evil. It's like, oh,
I remember that
evil.
one. That was a good one too. And there was a really good one where, a bit again based on a Twilight Zone episode, the one where the little girl walks through the wall into the other dimension. Only this time they used computer animation, so Homer walks through the wall and he goes into the third dimension, and it's like, oh, everything's round, and he sees cones and all these other things, and it was like an early use of computer animation on
I vividly remember that because I know they were in commercials leading up to that episode. They were making a big thing about Homer coming into the real world and all that.
Yeah, that one was really good too. So yeah, they just, going back, you can go on YouTube, the video quality is hit or miss, but you can see these episodes and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I stopped watching The Simpsons a long time ago, but every once in a while I'll tune in for a Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah. I mean, The Simpsons was a lot of fun. I mean, just like you, I stopped watching it after a while, but you go back and watch some of these early shows, whether it was Treehouse of Horror, the early stuff is still really clever.
I have to check that out. I remember the Homer traveling in time, the sound that the toaster would make. At one point, just things were so screwed up. Yeah, God, I was looking while you were getting into some of the episodes to see if they had a box set. I couldn't find one, but man, that 20 some odd episodes.
I mean, you can get a pretty good box set out of that now.
Yeah,
29 episodes. That's more than most series.
You can binge the heck out of that.
Yeah, no kidding.
I wonder if it's on Netflix. Anyway, I digress.
Yes.
Well, that's cool, Walker. I'm gonna actively look for some of those episodes. I didn't know they did the Talking Tina one. That sounds with Krusty.
Yeah, in fact, I'm pretty sure they made a toy. They made a Krusty doll, and on the back it had the switch for good and evil. So.
Very creative. They have a good creative staff on The Simpsons. So one of the cool things with those episodes, like you alluded to, Karen, where Homer would play the King Kong part, they would use the actors... the characters to take on whatever role the actors had in that film or that homage that they were running. So someone could be a Dracula character. I remember there was a Bram Stoker, on Bram Stoker's
that was another
Dracula.
one that was really good.
Yeah, it wasn't like Mr. Burns, like the older Dracula.
He was the Dracula.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. That sounds like a lot of fun. I wonder if they're streaming somewhere too. We should take a look at that.
They did one also where Bart played the Billy Mooney role, sending people to the cornfield and all that.
Oh yeah,
and Homer at the end, Homer becomes like the Jack in the Box.
Oh, funny.
So.
Yeah, they did a lot of Twilight Zone episodes.
That's cool. I'll have to check it out. All right. Well, we're going to kick it over to our chief here. He's been around longer than me and Karen, so he has a lot more Halloween-y episodes too.
Good God.
I jest.
I kept thinking about different Halloween episodes of stuff, and all this stuff just kept jumping in my head, and it's like, man, how do I narrow it down to one or two or whatever? So I kind of made a list, and I'll throw these out, and we can kind of talk a little bit about them. Some I actually watched in the last couple days, so they're fresh in my mind. Some are just, vague memories. But I'm sure you guys heard about the Halloween episode of Route 66.
Yes.
Yes, it's called Lizard Leg and Owlet's Wing.
Yes.
And it featured Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney Jr., and Peter Lorre.
Did you hear that one, Walker?
I've seen bits of it on YouTube. I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing.
They kind of get together to kind of discuss whether or not their makeup from back in the day would scare people today, or actually, back in '62 when Route 66 came out. I mean, figure their movies were only 20 years old, maybe
at that point.
But yeah, so that definitely is a classic.
It was
episode.
The last time that Boris Karloff wore the Frankenstein makeup that Jack Pierce had made for the original Frankenstein 1, 2, and 3. Well, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, etc. Peter Lorre, I guess, appeared because Bella wasn't available. Or
I think they just got whoever was available at the time. It
was a fun episode. I forgot about that, and I have the DVD at home.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so
we should, I don't know, maybe if it's on YouTube, we should link it.
Yeah, we could take a look and see.
Out of all the Halloween episodes, that would probably be, the most classic because of the three actors.
Definitely.
We covered Catspaw. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel actually had Halloween episodes. Angel had 1, Buffy had 3.
Wow.
And the one that I vividly remember is they get into this haunted house. They're having a Halloween party, and they go in this haunted house, and there's this fear demon that makes all their fears come to life. And at the end, they have this big hole in the floor, and the fear demon's rising from the hole, and it turns out he's like 6 inches tall. And they look in the book, that they looked him up in, and they didn't read underneath the picture. It said actual size. So Buffy just steps on him, and that's the end.
End of the episode.
Yeah. But he was just this little 6-inch guy. I am the fear demon. But that was good. And the Angel one, I hadn't watched Angel in a long time, so I watched this the other night. And it was actually Lorne, who was the demon of the... This was kind of 5th season, I think, when Angel took over Wolfram and Hart, the law firm. So he's more like a corporate guy instead of just a paranormal detective guy. And so the whole corporation has a Halloween party every year. So Lorne, the demon, he takes it on himself to organize this thing. And in order to get the work done, he goes to Wolfram and Hart, and they remove his sleep. So he doesn't have to sleep. So he can just keep going 24/7 organizing this party. Well, being that he's an empathic demon, when they don't have sleep, their thoughts actually materialize. So they can actually cause people to do things. Instead of reading their mind, they're writing to their mind. And so, there's this one assistant, Charles Gunn, who was on there, and Lorne tells him, he's trying to be a big lawyer type. And Lauren's like, yeah, you got to, assert yourself, mark your territory, blah, blah, blah. And so throughout the whole party, he's going around peeing in bushes and in corners and on Angel's chair and whatever, And then, and then he's like, he walks by and Angel's talking to one of the corporate heads, this one female. And Lauren's like, look at you two, sexual tension, go get a room. So they go back to his office and they're making out like rabbits. And so anything he says to any of these people, he goes to Fred and Wesley. Fred was like the scientist type, and then Wesley was Buffy's watcher after Giles, and he was also Faith's watcher. And the two of them are standing there like wallflowers, and Lauren's like, "Come on, mingle, get drunk, have fun, And so suddenly, even though they didn't drink anything, they're drunk. So. And so at the end, his whole sleep subconscious manifests in this big hulking type demon, and of course they have to defeat that. But it was actually a pretty good episode. I hadn't watched Angel in a long time, so I think I'm going to have to go and revisit the series. Another one, well, here's 3 that I didn't watch and I didn't remember. I don't know if you guys remember them. Big Bang Theory had the Middle Earth Paradigm, which I don't remember which one that was.
I know that they had Halloween episodes where they would dress up.
Well, they had was it Halloween? Yeah, well, yeah, because
it was a Halloween
dressed up like the Justice League.
Right.
Yeah.
They all at first they were all the Flash.
Right.
And Raj says, "Oh, we could stand behind each other and just look like we're running really fast."
And Raj becomes Aquaman. Aquaman sucks. Yeah. That was a great costume though.
That was a great costume.
He had the yellow wig and he was riding the seahorse and all that. Yeah, I do remember that one. Brady Bunch had Fright Night.
The Brady Bunch.
And I don't remember what that was.
Huh.
We
were talking
Brady
off.
Bunch fans is like.
Yeah, before we recorded, I was talking about Vincent Price and the Tiki episode where they went to Hawaii, but.
That was like a 3-parter, 4-parter. Something.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. Gosh.
Laverne and Shirley had Ghost Story.
Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Hass and Pepper. Okay, sorry.
Married with Children Lieutenant Debbie and I watched this last night. Take My Wife, Please. And in that one, basically, Al's always going, oh, just kill me. So he gets a knock on the door and he thinks it's trick-or-treaters and he ignores it. And then the knock again. And he's like, all right, I'm going to show them. He walks and he opens it up and it's the Grim Reaper. So the Grim Reaper, he's like, oh, yeah, good costume. Slams the door, turns around, and the Grim Reaper's right in front of him. So he reaches out and his hand goes right through it. So, oh, it's really Grim Reaper. So the Grim Reaper, takes off its hood and it's Peggy underneath.
Oh, wow.
And the Grim Reaper's like, I can appear as anything. This is your worst nightmare. So in the meantime, Marcy Darcy next door is having a party for this group of women that were convicted of killing their husbands. Well, how she got involved in the group, I don't know. But she was going to have the Village People play there at the party, and they didn't show up. So she comes over and she's got her husband dressed up as one of the Village People, and then she convinces Peg and Bud and Kelly into being the other Village People. And so they're all over there doing that, and Al's at home with the Grim Reaper, begging not to be killed. So the Grim Reaper says, well, I'll make you a deal. If anyone in your family says they need you between now and midnight, I'll let you go. And so the whole thing, they're watching the party next door on the TV just to see if any of them would actually say that they need Al. But no, it was a pretty funny episode.
Well, did they need him? You can't leave me hanging like.
It's like the real Village People show up. And the fake Village People, Marcy only had a single of YMCA. So the whole time they were just doing YMCA over and over. And the wives who had originally killed their husbands were pissed. And so the real Village People show up. And they're like, hey, and they're like, oh, cool. And they run up there and they start doing YMCA and they riot. So, Peg and Marcy and the kids are in the kitchen and, they're kind of peeking out and watching the Village People getting pillaged, basically. And then one of them comes in and they've been TP'd. Like, oh, I got TP'd. And he runs out and Kelly picks up a piece of toilet paper and she's like, oh, this is the nice stuff. It's like 2-ply. And then Bud's like, no, it's not. That's single ply. She goes, God, where's Dad when you need him?
Oh.
He's the toilet paper expert.
Yeah,
and then suddenly, boom, he's okay.
He's okay.
And he made it out. So
Interesting. Marcy Darcy, I want to say her first not starring role, but movie.
She was in Fright Night.
Yeah, exactly. So.
It's funny because I was at the San Jose Toy Show one time. And we were waiting for Dawn Wells to show up, Marianne from Gilligan's Island. I got to meet Dawn Wells. And she was, I don't know, out going to the bathroom, powdering her nose, taking a break, whatever. And so this person who was in the table next to her comes over and starts talking to us. And she was really funny and everything. And I looked down, and it was Amanda Bierce who played Marcy Darcy. And no, she was really cool.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's funny because Pluto TV just added an Addams Family channel. So you can sit there and watch Addams Family all day long.
I love the Addams
Family. So I was at work and I'm like, well, maybe I'll put Addams Family on my iPad in the background. First thing that pops up was Halloween Addams Style. And they also had Halloween with the Addams Family.
Yep.
But those two, one of them was one of the neighbors tells Wednesday and Pugsley that there's no such things as witches. And they're all upset. And so Morticia and Gomez basically say, okay, we've got to find a witch for the kids, And it's like, I always thought Grandmama was a witch.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But she's in there trying to find a witch too. It's like, all right, whatever. So, they have the seance. And Lurch plays like Aunt Singe, and she's in like another room, and they're like, answer us, Aunt Singe, and he's like, oh, this is Aunt Singe. It's like, but that was a good one. And then the other one was they're getting this whole big, all the things together for Halloween, and they're getting ready to celebrate, and these two robbers, the cops see them, and they like jump into the Addams Family house to hide, and so, but they have bags, so. Of course, Morticia thinks they're trick-or-treaters. And so they invite him in to do stuff. And, of course, they have to do all these crazy Addams Family things, and they end up running out. But one of the robbers was played by, does anybody know? Don Rickles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So Can't beat that.
Yeah.
Don Rickles. They also had a Halloween with the Addams Family TV movie in 1977, but I think I watched it when it was first on and never again.
Yeah, I saw. As a matter of fact, I have it on videotape.
Videotape?
Yes.
Tape?
There was a cassette.
Do you still have something that plays videotape?
In the garage. I watched it, and it was so slow paced. It just didn't have the. What do the French say? Je ne sais quoi.
It's not the same.
Yeah, that the original. I mean, it was good to see Morticia and Gomez and all the actors and stuff, but yeah.
So, Drew Carey show had a couple. The Devil You Say and It's Halloween Dummy. And even though I watched Drew Carey quite a bit on the Laugh channel or whatever, or Laugh TV, I don't remember those, unfortunately. Malcolm in the Middle had a couple. Halloween Approximately and just Halloween. And I'm trying to remember those, but Gilligan's Island had Ghost of Go-Go, which actually is relevant today, I think, because they have this ghost trying to scare them off the island. And the ghost turns out to be a Russian agent that wants to take the island over for oil production.
Oh, jeez.
So, Gilligan's Island, relevant today. And, of course, they all dress up like ghosts to scare him off. And,
yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Howell has her fancy hat on and everything. Let's see, what else did we get? The Munsters. One of their first episodes was Munster Masquerade, where they go to Marilyn's boyfriend's house, his family's house, for a masquerade party, and Herman's wearing the knight outfit, knight armor, and he opens up the mask and his regular face is underneath, and they all think he has a costume under the costume, and he wins the masquerade contest, and Marilyn's the only one that realizes that they're making fun of him or whatever, and gets all mad. There's a couple Monkeys episodes. There's Monkeys in a Ghost Town. And that one was they're stranded in a ghost town after their car runs out of gas. And they're held prisoner by the big man, who is actually played by Rosemarie.
Really?
And then a couple robbers, they're her boys. The other one is Monstrous Monkey Mash, where Davy's girlfriend takes him to a haunted house. And there's Count Batula and a wolf man, a mummy man, and a Frankenstein-looking monster. And I guess the main thing about that is his girlfriend is played by Arlene Martell.
Oh.
So T'Pring from Amok Time.
Star Trek, right.
So, yeah. You guys want to take...
Did she go from Spock to Davy or Davy to Spock?
Well, let's see. That was...
Spock to Davy.
Dang, I don't have a year for that. But,
the Monkeys came after Star Trek.
Well, they were about this. Monkeys were like 67, I think.
Was it 67?
So it was probably about the same time. So yeah, she looks pretty similar, except for the ears.
Yeah.
You guys want to take a stab at what songs were in those Monkeys episodes? 3 songs between the 2 episodes.
Well, I know
just 3?
Yeah.
They did 2 in the Monkeys in a Ghost Town, and they did 1 in Monstrous Monkey Mash.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
I couldn't even...
Monkeys in a Ghost Town was Tomorrow's Gonna Be Another Day and Papa Jean's Blues. And Monstrous Monkey Mash was Going Down.
Well, those are Halloween-y kind of songs, so...
Well, yeah, I would think like your Auntie Griselda or something would fit more. Now, I'm not even going to go down the Supernatural road, but Supernatural's had a lot. I think like 10 or 12 Halloween episodes.
I was going to say, by its very nature, isn't it a
Yeah,
they do
monster,
quite a
spiritual,
few.
yeah.
The other one that we watched actually this morning, getting ready for this episode, was Highway to Heaven. And
with Michael
Landon. And their Halloween episode was I Was a Middle-Aged Werewolf. And Michael Landon wrote and directed the episode celebrating the 30th anniversary of his first film, I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Wow.
And it's pretty funny. I mean, basically, I think that's the only episode I've ever watched of Highway to Heaven. So I don't know like the characters' names and things, but it's basically Michael Landon is an angel, and then he's got this guy that kind of drives him around and helps him out and whatever. And so, it's Halloween and they want to take a break or whatever. And so they were talking about the previous, I guess they had a Halloween episode the year before where they fought the devil. And, the human guy's like, oh, I still get the creeps, And so he goes, well, let's just get a sandwich or something and go home and watch movies. Watch some creepy movies. So Michael Landon said, okay. So he pulls up in front of like Satan's Sandwiches. And Michael Landon's like, are you really going to go in there? He said, yeah, I'm going in there. So he goes in, and it's all smoky and foggy and stuff. And he gets the Devil's Delight, which is this huge, submarine sandwich. And he takes it back out, and, of course, the guy at the counter turns around, and he's the devil from the episode last year. And last year being like 1986, I think. So they go back to the house, and, Michael Landon's like, well, I'm going to go out for a walk. And the other guy's like watching I Was a Teenage Werewolf on TV, and he's like, this guy looks like you. Not when he's got the hairy face, but when he's there. And he's like, I was never that young. So he goes out for a walk, and the other guy's like eating this big Devil's Delight sandwich. And so he keeps falling asleep and dreaming of basically Michael Landon being the werewolf. And so, he's like, they reprise the makeup. So, it doesn't look exact, but, they make him a werewolf. And so during the episode, while Michael Landon's out doing things on Halloween, walking this kid around trick-or-treating and that, this guy's having all these dreams of Michael Landon being a werewolf. And I thought one of the interesting things is one of the guys that worked on the makeup on that was Michael Westmore.
Oh.
Who was on Face Off and did a lot of Star Trek makeup in that.
Yes.
So that was pretty cool.
That is cool. I'm going to have to check that out.
Another one that I decided to watch was on Halloween night, which was like episode 8 of Ultraman Tiga. And it was an actual Ultraman Halloween episode. And it had a witch and a giant pumpkin and everything else. It was pretty good. She was like taking all these kids. She'd be handing out these free lollipops, and the kids would eat them, and they'd be under a spell, and she'd take them into this other dimension and steal their dreams. And so, of course, at the end, she becomes a monster, and Daigo has to become Tiga and defeat her. And then I was thinking of Commander Larry, and we watched Trick or Treat, which was a Halloween episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
I knew you were going to say that.
In which Kimberly and Skull go on a game show called Trick or Treat. And in the meantime, Rita Repulsa is trying to grow the pumpkin wrapper. And it's hilarious results ensue.
Hilarity ensues. I'll have to not check that out.
Everything with the Power Rangers getting pumpkins stuck on their heads to fighting putties with pumpkins. And then, of course, the witch at the end, they have to defeat the pumpkin rapper who raps. I was kind of disappointed that Bryan Cranston didn't do the voice of the pumpkin rapper because he did voices for a number of Power Rangers villains.
He did?
In the early days. In fact, in the Power Rangers reboot movie, he plays Zordon.
There was a reboot movie?
Yeah,
wow.
Recently.
You
reboot
slay
of
me, Chief.
the original
You slay me.
ones. And Bryan Cranston was in there as Zordon. So there you go. That was just for Commander Larry.
Thank you very much.
And what do we got? We got some more time, or should we?
Well, I think on that note, Chief, on that high note, let's go ahead and cover this episode's censor sweep. You have something for us, Chief?
I do. I've got something special, actually. Recently, I had lunch with a guy from Bandai, and they came out with a Godzilla card game, brand new Godzilla card game, which just beautiful. Just the cover, you could just like take this thing and stick it on your shelf if you don't play cards.
Now, these are Bandai's the guys that come out with the Godzilla figures and all the different.
Yeah. Bandai is one of the largest toy companies in Japan. In fact, they are a 51% shareholder in Tsuburaya Productions that makes Ultraman.
Wow.
It's basically Bandai, 51%, and 49% is like a pachinko company.
Huh.
Which, pachinko companies in Japan, it's mostly like Yakuza guys, but they pretty much...
We won't talk about that.
They just want the money. They let Bandai kind of handle the actual Tsuburaya part of things. But anyway, this card game, beautiful card game. And I recently had a chance to interview the designer of the game.
Oh.
And this was actually, I had asked him, hey, have you done any Godzilla-related interviews? And he's like, well, I've done interviews about the game for like gaming podcasts and things, but this is my first one that concentrates on Godzilla. So here it is, and we have it.
Take it away.
So let it roll. And with us today is Ryan Miller. Welcome to Planet 8.
Thanks for having me.
And Ryan basically is the mastermind behind a new Godzilla card game, which comes from Chrono Clash and is being distributed by Bandai in the United States. So, Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe how you started with Chrono Clash, because I assume you've done more before Godzilla.
Oh, yeah. So Chrono Clash is actually the name of the system that we're using, and that's something I came up with when I was working with Bandai, and they wanted to do a card game using Naruto, and I had already worked with them on some other projects, and they were like, hey, we really want to do this kind of exciting back and forth card game experience. What do you got? And I kind of pitched this idea to them, and they really ended up loving it. I'm really grateful that they really put a lot into it. The Naruto game came out first, and then Godzilla, of course, just came out. So the cool thing is you can fight, kaiju versus ninjas if you want to, and we're actually doing a couple other properties. We just announced Evangelion. And there's some more in the pipeline that I can't even talk about yet.
So if you accidentally dropped your decks on the floor and mixed them up, you could basically
it'd be pretty weird.
Basically, have anybody fight anybody. Huh?
Yeah, but basically, it's to me. So the kind of the heart of the system is kind of how cards are costed. And so those of you listening that have played trading card games, you know that they generally have a cost to them. I know Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't, but most card games do. There's some cost to playing the card, like Magic has mana, that sort of thing. In this game, it's called time. Like time is the resource. And you use this track called the chrono gauge. And basically it starts at 10, goes to 0, and then goes up to 10 on your opponent's side. Whenever you play a card, you pay its cost by moving a counter towards your opponent that many spaces. When it gets your opponent's 1 or higher, your turn ends, and it's their turn now. What I really like about this system is that you can, if you want to, play your 9-cost battler on turn 1. I mean, you can. It may not be the right call because you're giving your opponent a lot of time on their first turn now with kind of low repercussions. So it's a pretty exciting system for me because I've been working in trading card games for 20 years now. I used to work at Wizards of the Coast for a long time and worked on some other games. And I've always wanted to do a game where you can do anything you want. You just might regret it. It sounds kind of weird, but I just love that idea of, it's an old Army phrase, actually. The Army can't make you do anything. They can just make you wish that you had. And I really like, with regular mana systems, you're kind of forced to wait, right? You're either that or you build a deck that kind of ramps up really quickly. And in this game, it's like, do whatever you want, it's just a risk, which adds that excitement to it.
That's great. So looking at the game here, you seem to have like all the monsters in there, at least up through Final Wars. I don't think you guys went to like Shin Godzilla or the legendary stuff.
Yeah, they handed me quite a list of monsters to include in the game, and it was like, I've known about Godzilla. I've watched a ton of movies, but I had to do a decent amount of research into each individual character so that I could at least try to kind of reflect their abilities and reflect their kind of presence in the game itself. And it was pretty interesting dive into the world, let me tell you.
Yeah, I guess the advantage of working with Bandai is they already have the rights to a lot of these monsters, so it's not not like other games where they can only get 1 or 2 or 3.
I was especially pleased to see like the 1950s and 60s stuff in there as well. I think that's a really great kind of callback to the heritage or the origins of this wonderful franchise. I was just excited. I didn't know when they handed me the job. I didn't know like, well, what does that mean, Godzilla? Of course, it could mean many things, right? And it was really cool to see that they wanted to kind of cover so many decades of that property, right? It was pretty cool.
No, I mean, I was looking through the cards, and yeah, I mean, there's definitely all eras of Godzilla are basically covered. So,
what's your favorite so far that you've seen?
Oh, for me, well, I love the Showa stuff, all the 60s and 70s stuff. That's what what I grew up with, and yeah, the art is amazing. Who actually is responsible for the art on this?
That's all Bandai.
Really?
Basically, my responsibilities are to I design what the cards do, and then I playtest the hell out of them with a ton of playtesters, and kind of refine them and change them. And then when my deadline hits, I ship them a really big Excel file with all the information on what's supposed to go on each card. And then they take it from there. They do all the graphic design. They do all the art direction. They're an impressive. I mean, they've really taken a challenging game to make. Like it's not easy to make this kind of game that's based on icons rather than words, right? And that's pretty challenging, and I think they've done a great job.
And yeah, I know Bandai's been working with or on Godzilla for decades. So
yeah, and so it's definitely something that they love over there, and my team that I work with at Bandai, they're all just super dedicated to Chrono Clash and making sure that each version of it is as good as it can be, and I couldn't ask for better partners. I mean, they've been awesome. They brought me to Tokyo a few times, and that was amazing. Like I had first gone to Tokyo when I used to be the lead designer for Duel Masters, which is a Wizards of the Coast card game that they do in Japan. So I went there for Duel Masters, and then when I started working with Bandai, I came back a few more times, and just every time I go to Japan, I fall more in love with Tokyo. It's just an amazing city.
Well, were you like a gamer growing up, or how did you actually get into all this?
Actually, yeah. So, I was about 11 years old, and a friend of mine at school told me about Dungeons and Dragons. So this would be about 1984. And I get all excited. He tells me about this game. He kind of gives me the gist of like what the game's about. Doesn't really teach me it, but it kind of gives me the gist. And that day I'm home from school. My mom gets home from work, and I'm so excited. And I tell her, I'm like, Mom, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. And she goes, well, you can't play that. It's satanic. And I was so disappointed. But then I was like, well, I could probably make up games. And I just started making them up. And from age 11, I've pretty much been always designing games. I mean, it's something that I kind of felt I never thought I would make a living doing, right? It was one of those I know I'll always make games, but I didn't expect to do that. And when I got out of the Army in 98, and I just thought, I'm going to move to Seattle and just see if I can get a job at Wizards of the Coast and see if I can do it. And that way, when I'm an old man, I can be like, well, at least I tried, I did my best. But it ended up working out. I got basically the lowest job you could get. It was a Magic tournament judge at this game center that Wizards used to run out here. And so for like $6 an hour, I would judge Magic tournaments. But that was the start. I mean, I basically from there just kind of tried to network my way on up, and eventually worked at R&D for nearly a decade. So,
yeah, well, I mean, there can be worse ways of making a living.
Yeah, I can't complain. I cannot complain nowadays. So now I do freelance work. So now that's like Bandai, and I work with other publishers to make board games and card games, or I'll consult with companies that are thinking about like doing a trading card game and things like that, and kind of work with them on what they want to do. So yeah, it's cards are kind of my life. And so when Bandai was like, we want to make this card game, we want to make it with a bunch of properties like Naruto and Godzilla and Evangelion, and I was like, yes, sign me up, put me in, coach.
So did Bandai or Toho have any input, or did they just pretty much leave you alone to do whatever you wanted to do?
So they gave me the characters, right? So they'll send me they'll send me a Excel spreadsheet, right? Lots of spreadsheet talk. This is game design, gang. This is spreadsheet. And it will have the characters in it. They'll have some notes on each character just to help me out to get a feel for what the character does. And then what I do, my job is to not only try to make each character's abilities kind of show in the game, but also to make sure that over the set that there's a nice mix of abilities so that players, when they build their decks, can have lots of options and find strategies and find combos and things like that. So not every card is strictly about its character. Sometimes they are serving like a larger set goal, for the overall set. But my goal is that each card, and I definitely did that a lot of work on that with Godzilla to kind of, and you got to take some artistic license, of course, in a card game, but I did my best to kind of help the character kind of show through in what the card does, and then of course they take it and make these awesome, beautiful cards out of them, and yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, once you give them all your notes and everything, I assume they send you back proofs or
so
you
actually
get an idea what it's going to look like.
Gen Con last August, and I don't know if you know about Gen Con, but it's like the biggest tabletop gaming convention in North America every year. It's in Indianapolis, and it usually draws around 70,000 people.
Oh, okay.
And we had some events out there for Chrono Clash, mostly for Naruto, and this is well before Godzilla even came out. And so when I got there, they said, hey, we've got a bunch of proofs. And so I actually made Godzilla decks so that when I played against the Naruto players, they would freak out because they're seeing these cards that they've never seen before. And it was awesome, man.
Well, let me just slap down Godzilla on this one.
Yeah, it was pretty great, actually. It was pretty fun to kind of get them, they got all excited and they were like checking out the new abilities and playing my game against people who love playing it is about as good as it gets for me, right? I mean, it's just really fun to see people enjoying what I've done and kind of enjoying the work that I put into it, and then also me getting to play with them. Like one of the things I do is I have these custom play mats that I make, and everybody who plays me has to sign my play mat. And so like on the wall of my office right now, I've got a few tacked up that are just covered in signatures and little pictures and all sorts of stuff. And it's just a fun way for me to kind of hang out with the players and play them. And so if you guys ever see me and I'm at an event and we're playing cards, please come by and we'll throw down, and you'll probably beat me, but I don't care. But you gotta sign my mat. If you play me, you sign my mat. That's the rule.
Well, that was my next question. Are you the master of your game, or do people come up and just kind of catch on really quick and give you a challenge?
So it's interesting. So a lot of game designers, there's different types of game designers, and I tend to be more of an immersive or story-based or theme-based game designer. Then there's like other game designers that are more about strategy and things like that. I mean, we all have to do all of those things. It's just what we're better at, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so like when I worked at Wizards, I was amongst a lot of strategic game designers. And those types of game designers tend to be great at their games because they get these efficient strategies and they know them so well. But thematic designers like myself tend to be distracted by all the different options, and you can do these cool things, and can't you see, like, and if you're playing against a player who just wants to win, you can oftentimes find yourself but also with card games, with any kind of trading card game or expandable card game in any sense, there's enough variance in the gameplay where, even if you're playing against a master, you're gonna, you have that hope you can kind of squeak through, or you can beat him, that sort of thing. And so there's actually, I do fairly well. Like I tend to win more than I lose, but I'm by no means what I consider myself a master at it. I just make the game.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, do you design things into your game that maybe only you know about, so you can pull out a trick here and there?
Well, the thing about especially expandable card games or customizable card games like this is that you're going to play like as a designer. I have a small group of play testers. We play test, and I have one lead developer, this guy named Steve that is just this amazing developer guy. And so we find a lot of the problems, or we find a lot of the, but the players, once the game is out, the players are going to play way more games in a short amount of time than you're ever going to play. And so one of the things I love about these types of games is that they surprise even the designers. Like we'll see interactions that we didn't expect. And most of the time that's fine. And every once in a while it's too powerful and we have to kind of take measures. But for the most part, it's an exciting type of game to launch because of that, right? That sense of discovery, and that the players, once they get their hands on it, man, they're more than likely going to see stuff that even with all your playtesting, you just didn't see, right? So it's pretty exciting.
That's great. So in working on this, were there any particular characters that jumped out as your favorites, or?
I mean, I've always been kind of partial to Mechagodzilla. I think that's because growing up, I was a big Robotech fan.
Uh-huh.
And so I really dig mecha, and I love the idea of massive robots and that sort of thing. And so Mechagodzilla was the one that, and if you see on his card, he has some pretty There's like, and then like any of the mecha ones, there's a few of them in the set. Mecha King Ghidorah is just this awesome card. Right. One of the biggest creatures in the game is Super Mechagodzilla. And it's just this huge creature that can win you the game fairly quickly if your opponent can't deal with it.
Right.
He's pretty cool.
So I didn't, let me look on the back here. So I didn't look to see all the mecha. I assume Jet Jaguar's in there. I assume Mogura, I guess, is in there.
Let's see.
And what other mecha we got? Probably not Mechanicon. These
Jet Jaguar, the 1973 Jet Jaguar is in there, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
That was the year I was born, so that.
All right.
I'm the same age as Jet Jaguar. It's pretty awesome.
And then I don't know. I guess I know Toho tends to always shy away from Kong, so I guess there's no like Mechanicon in there. Or...
No, we didn't put any of that stuff in there.
But I mean, aside from that, I mean, it looks just looking at the back of the box. I mean, it looks like you got just about all of them covered.
Yeah, they really sent me. I mean, I was really pleased. I was kind of like when they first told me that they wanted me to do the game, I was a little worried because, you know, this is a property that is kind of all about one of the, you know, there's this huge main character basically, right? There's this Godzilla guy. And I'm like, you know, I obviously can make lots of different Godzillas, and I did in this set. There's lots of different ones. But I really wanted a set that kind of, you know, it highlighted just the vast like diversity of characters, diversity of monsters in this game, and I was not disappointed.
No, that's great.
Pretty outstanding. There's 96 cards in that set, and there are a lot of different characters. It's it's pretty fun.
That's great. Yeah, I've been into Godzilla since I was a kid, and I'm an old man now, so many years. But I know Godzilla has quite a fandom, and some are pretty serious about it. Have you gotten any feedback or any comments on the game yet?
I haven't gotten any. Like, I think I see what you're getting at. Like, some people can be a bit defensive about their favorite properties, and like if they don't.
That's a nice way to put it. Well.
Yeah. and I think that I haven't yet. I mean, I imagine that you're just going to get that. I mean, I think that any beloved property. You're just going to get that, and to me, that's just great because it's basically just people are passionate and they love it, right? And and hopefully, you know, my offering or my addition to the property is mostly good for them, and you know, and one of the nice things about card games is they do have this wonderful level of abstraction, right? I can't put, especially this game because it uses icons instead of words. I can't put, you know, block of text on these things to kind of. You know, and so that means that it's going to be hard for somebody to go, well, wait a minute, you know, why does Super X3 have sneak attack? Like, you know, or why, you know, it's going to be hard for them to do that. Well, that one's pretty obvious, actually. Why does sneak attack? I just mean like, why does it, you know, so it adds that nice level of abstraction, and it can kind of let the player kind of connect the dots rather than me trying to force feed like, no, here's what he does and this is what it represents and that sort of thing. And so I think I think that factor will help in that regard. I think most of the feedback I've gotten so far has been people just loving it. They're just having a good time with it and excited for it. And you know, we every box that comes with those massive oversized cards, which are actually used in the game, and that's just, I mean, oversized cards, we had them in Naruto, but they're like tailor-made for Godzilla, right?
Oh, yeah.
These huge cards that it feels so good to just slam those things down on the table and attack with them. It's pretty awesome.
Shake the table with a Godzilla card.
Yeah, exactly right. Or I just like to say, like when I put one down, you can feel the wind waft across. Right? Your opponent just feels like a whoosh, right? You're like, yes.
See your opponent's hair blown back, and
yeah, exactly.
That's great. So, if this game takes off, does great, let's say Bandai wants to do another. Are there more Godzilla card stories to tell, or can you imagine a sequel to this?
I have plenty of confidence that we could do that. We already have a sequel for Naruto coming out next month, I believe. And so, I mean, that to me, you know, I can't really tell what they're going to do. It's really not up to me what their future plans are. But I would say that the Naruto expansion coming out is a good indicator that if Godzilla does well, then yeah, there'll be more cards for Godzilla. And I think that absolutely, I can. Like one of the things I thought I wanted to add in this set, but couldn't quite fit in because of the characters they sent me, was I wanted cities. Like I wanted the cities to be a part of the game, but we just didn't have room. We wanted all these great characters. We wanted this other stuff, and then cities kind of would bring their own mechanical complexity to the game because I'd have to have rules for like, well, what does that mean? What are these cards? That sort of thing. But I think for an expansion, I think something like that would be amazing. If you could have, like I take over Tokyo and you're like, I'm gonna stay over here at Godzilla Island. I mean, things like that I think would add a lot of fun flavor.
Send
to
them
it.
off to Planet X. You could expand all the way through the universe.
Exactly. So yeah, I think there's plenty of more space to design cards for this game, and I think that but really, it's hard for me to say like what their plans are going to be. Obviously, the obvious answer is that yeah, if this set sells great, then yeah, there'll be plenty more support for it, just like Naruto, right? So yeah, it's I hope so. I'd like to work on more Godzilla cards, that's for sure.
Well, I guess the advantage of working with Bandai is you're not really stuck with just like a Toho property. I mean, you could do Ultraman or Gamera or whatever. They
have a lot of it's a huge part of their business is in intellectual property, right? And so they know it inside and out. They know what they can and can't do, that sort of thing. And so yeah, it's an exciting game to work on. To have that have those kind of possibilities. I think it's pretty cool.
Well, I know Bandai is like a majority owner of Subaraya Productions, so I'm surprised they haven't talked about an Ultraman game yet. Because I know they're doing a big push of Ultraman over here now. So
I just don't, I think Ultraman is obviously like 99.9% aware in Japan. I don't think it goes that way here in America, right? I think that, there's obviously lots of fans for Ultraman in America.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. I know Mill Creek they bought like every Ultraman series and every movie and whatever, and they're starting to pump them out on Blu-ray like this month.
Oh, sweet! I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
So the awareness will be there. They're doing a huge push. That's why I'm saying it'd be interesting.
Yeah,
to see
I didn't
if
know that.
It
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they definitely have a lot of properties that they've kind of. We actually had some polls. We were asking players like, what properties would you want to see in the future, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think Ultraman would be amazing. Like,
think of all the characters and monsters, and I mean, there's thousands, literally.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool, especially if you could kind of have them battling Godzilla characters and fun, right?
But that's amazing. And like I say, I have the box, the game sitting in front of me, and even if people aren't particularly fans of card games, I mean, just the box itself is worth putting up on a shelf. The cards,
well, the nice thing too is
really
so
cool.
A lot of people might be off put by like a collectible card game where you have to buy a bunch of packs and you have to chase certain cards. And this game, the entire game, you get a complete play set of the whole game by just buying the box. So you never have to buy anything else once you buy that box. You can make all the decks you want. You can play the decks that are in the box if you want. If you don't feel like making decks, you can just shuffle up and play right out of the box. So really, it's a fun way to kind of get your favorite characters battling each other in a way that you're not going to have to buy a bunch of packs and hunt down the ultra rares and that sort of thing. They are doing this kind of neat thing where they did every card they did in a foil version, and they're called tournament packs, and they put a few tournament packs in each box, and so they're not exclusive cards. They're just foil versions of cards that are in that box already, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of neat because that's given a little. So some people who enjoy collecting will collect those or trade them, right? Or people who want like a ton of foils in their deck, they can do that. And I think that was kind of a neat idea of kind of still having some of that like treasure hunting aspect, but it's totally opt-in, right? You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And I think that's a really cool that they did that. I was pleasantly surprised at how the players really took to that. There's a Chrono Clash Facebook page, and there's a lot of them that they'll be trading their foils. They'll be looking for this foil, look for that foil. It's pretty fun.
No, definitely. So what would be the best places for people to look for the game? Websites or? I
mean, I always tell people like support your local game store. That's what I do. Game stores are awesome because they, most game stores, have space to play games in. They run tournaments, they run events. Bondi is running events for this game as well. So check out your game store and support your game stores because they're the ones that are bringing people in, so you can find other people to play against and that sort of thing. And so that's where I go if I'm buying games. There's a place called Game On here in South Hill, Washington that I go to and buy games from and talk to the folks about what's looking good or what's exciting right now for retailers and that sort of thing. So I would say find your local game store and if they don't have it, ask them about it. And then if they're not going to get it, then I would look online, but support that game store because they do great work.
Oh, definitely. And we just missed last month. Well, actually in August, we did a Godzilla Fest in San Francisco. So we just missed that. We could have had a tournament right there. No. We had a whole weekend of like 13 different Godzilla films, and Michael Dougherty, the director, was there, and it was a big event. You had a couple hundred people at least, at any one time.
That's amazing.
The lobby space is a little limited, but and vendors keep wanting to dive in, so we'll see. We do it every August, so maybe we can work something out next year.
In December, I'll be at the Chara Expo, which is in LA, and it's like a big anime thing, and. So I try. I don't get to go to all the shows, but I try to go as many as I can just to meet with the players and, help run the events and that sort of thing. So, but it looks like we missed out on that one pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We're talking to the theater about doing a Toho Mecha show in probably March, where we show a bunch of things like Atragon and Battle in Outer Space and the Mysterians, and then being Mecha, we'll throw in Mecha Godzilla and King Kong Escapes and whatever. So I don't know. Maybe we can kick it off with a Friday night tournament or something.
That'd be awesome.
We'll see. We'll talk to Bandai and see what we can work out.
Never know. Yeah, they're always excited to support that kind of stuff. So you never know what they'll be able to do. Mitsuha's been great. She's been great to work with on that kind of stuff.
No, it's been great. So thanks for being on the show. And
dude, thanks for having me.
We'll post all the links to all the information, and we're going to be doing an article on the game for Sci-Fi Japan. So. We'll link to that as well, and then link back to this, so people will have no excuse not to know about this game.
Yeah, let me know. I'd like to post about it too to my page and let people know. But yeah, dude, thanks for taking your time out and helping support my game. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad. It's great to see games like this come out. As an old time Godzilla fan, and just to see new product come out all the time. I mean, that's the whole thing about. Whether it's Godzilla or James Bond or whatever, just bringing in the new generations of fans each time. That's what's going to keep it alive,
Yeah, people picking it up. And the nice thing about Godzilla is most everyone's heard of it. Right. So, when the younger generation kind of sees the product on the shelf, they're like, oh, maybe it's bigger than I thought it was. Like, maybe I should check this out, and it's got it definitely has that aspect to it, which is very exciting.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a good time too because Criterion's releasing a big box set at the end of the month, and I know Turner Classic Movies and Comet TV and all these places have been doing like marathons of the movies and things. So it's
a good time to be a Godzilla fan.
It's an exciting time. So hopefully all that'll be good for the game.
Yeah, that's my hope.
All right. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Maybe we'll talk to you when we get closer to one of these shows where we can do a tournament.
Great. Yeah, let me know. I'll be happy to chat again. Thanks for having me on your show.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. That brings this episode to its conclusion. We want to take the time to wish you a happy and safe Halloween. Kick it over to the Chief. Any Halloween messages for the listeners, Chief?
Well, I was going to talk about our listener party, but I think this episode comes out like 2 days after it. So I'll say, man, we had a great listeners party a couple days ago. It was fantastic. Just packed the place. But seriously, just happy Halloween to all the listeners out there, and hopefully you had a safe and insane night of trick-or-treating or monster movie watching or whatever you choose to do on Halloween.
There you go. Kicking it up to the satellite. Karen, any messages for the Halloween listeners?
Yeah, I just I want to encourage everybody to have a good Halloween. And also, hand out candy. You know, I think there's a kind of a move. A lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to go somewhere on Halloween. I don't want to deal with it. And you know what? When we were kids, we were lucky to go around and get candy and have fun running around at night. So, you know, don't look on it as a chore. Look on it as something fun where you can be that person who makes somebody's night and hand out that candy to those kids and make their night. So carry on the tradition.
Very good.
Don't turn out your lights and hide in a back room somewhere.
Right.
Very, very well said, my friends. On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.blogspot.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.
Shrieks through the trees. Children laugh and pumpkins grin, and an unmistakable surge of evil is felt as darkness falls.
Pounding at the door, a gang of ghouls screams trick or treat, and I warn them of the house at the end of our street. Don't haunt the house at the end of the street. Last year, 20 kids got sick. Poison candy they did eat. People say it was the house at the end of the street. Don't haunt the house at the end of the street. Don't trick or treat. Don't trick or treat. Don't leave the house at the end of the street.
Apples filled with razor blades and pins behind the shades. Never ever go inside, 'cause they come out at night.
Disappear, waiting for them to meet when they go in the house at the end of the street. Don't haunt the house at the end of the street. Don't trick or treat. Don't trick or treat. Don't leave the house at the end of the street.